Stevie Wilson for LAstory.com. Christmas, the holidays, they're all over. Thank God. But one of the most interesting facts that comes out, maybe this won't be a surprise to you, it isn't really to me, is that a recent Harris poll said that improving family finances or even personal finances is second only to losing weight as a New Year's resolution, meaning that everybody overate and overspent over the holidays. So consumer counseling agencies are often seeing more people at this time of year, particularly as they try to get ready for tax season, which is always scary too. So we have somebody interesting to talk to us about how to manage your money better. And actually, it's really an interesting concept of what he's going to talk about. This is Nick Clements. He's the co-founder of MagnifyMoney.com. He knows he's a former banker, now consumer advocate. So this is kind of cool. So we're going to get lots of tips and ideas. So how are you today, Nick?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. How are you doing?
I'm good. So now that we've all overspent for holidays and overate, you can't help us on the overeating. You can't help us on the overspending.
I know. We always follow the same pattern too. Every December, we promise not to spend more than we should. But the data, we actually just did a survey we released today, and for those who went into debt, they went into at least $900 more of debt over the holiday period, and they went into December with debt already. I mean, 40% of the country had an average of $10,000 worth of debt. And then they just added on to it. And so while it felt good during the holidays to open the presents, unfortunately in January we're now stuck opening the statements. And that's the scary part, and that's why everyone decides to have a New Year's resolution to deal with that debt and to get their house in order.
Right, so how does somebody do that?
Right, so I think step one, the most important step, is you have to be honest with how much debt do I have and what is it costing me? That may sound really simple, but a lot of people just don't want to deal with that number. And so I say, get out your credit card statements and make a list, but then next to the balance of each credit card that you have, also write down the interest rate, because that interest rate will probably surprise you. Most credit cards are charging 15% or more, and if you took the bait and were at the checkout of one of your favorite department stores and they said, hey, I'll give you 10% off if you open this card, most of those credit cards are charging 23% or higher. So shocking numbers. And it doesn't matter what your credit score is. They're going to charge you that high rate. So to put this in simple numbers, nearly half the country is going to be spending over $1,000 in interest alone over the next 12 months. That is a really big number. So what I say is once you have the list of here's my balance and here's the interest rate I'm paying, your job should be to go out and find much lower interest rate alternatives. So just in the same way that you would refinance a house or a mortgage to get a lower rate, you can do the same thing with your credit card debt with the goal of paying off your debt a whole lot faster.
And I have done that in the past, and it's been really successful to the point of, what you can do, because you can go to credit unions and get cards and other places that are much more forgiving in terms of making credit more accessible because they give you a better interest rate, but that doesn't mean that you should go on spending.
Oh, absolutely. So you made a really good point there about credit union. I mean, we went out, so at MagnifyMoney.com, we went out and we reviewed thousands of products. And the names that pop to the top are not sort of the traditional names that you would expect to see. They're not the sort of Bank of America, Wells Fargo. They tend to be credit unions, some banks you may never have heard of, and those are the ones, they operate nationally and they can give you some of the best deals. So don't be afraid if you see a name at the top of our recommendation list that you've never heard of. They just have the better deal. But regardless of what you do, so no matter who you go to, right, once you transfer that debt, here's what the credit card company is counting on. Because remember, I used to work there, so here's what they're counting on. They expect you to either pay late, to keep spending, or to do both. And so what you need to do if you want to get out of debt is, number one, make sure you set up automatic payments so that every month you pay on time and you won't be hit with late fees or increased interest rates. And then number two, I just say take that credit card and put it in the freezer or hide it or bury it. Just put it away from you, because the goal is not to use that savings from the low interest rate to buy more things. The goal is to actually pay off that debt faster.
Right, because it's like I tend to think about credit cards a lot more when I'm, got a major car repair coming or a surprise. It hit me a couple of weeks ago. It's like, wow, really? Okay, well, at least I've got a credit card that I can put it on, but it's also got to be paid for. It's not one of those things that people think of, it'll go away until you notice it on the bill. Right,
exactly. And I actually have a bit of advice even there, because emergencies will come up. They always come up. And clearly the best way to prepare for emergency is to have an emergency fund where you have sort of up to 6 months worth of your salary and savings. And wouldn't it be great if we could all do that? But if you don't have that, but even if you do, I highly recommend finding a low interest rate credit card that's just always a low interest rate, so that if there is an emergency, you know you're not going to be paying those big bank rates. I mean, Pentagon Federal Credit Union, who knew? The Pentagon, they have a credit union that anyone can join, and they have incredibly low interest rates on their PenFed Promise card. And that's just one example, but your local credit union may have low interest rates as well, and these low rates are always there. So they're not introductory offers. And that means that if one day you wake up and your car breaks down or there's a medical emergency and you need to very quickly spend money that you don't have, planning ahead for that is a really great way to make sure that even your emergencies won't cost you a lot of money.
Exactly. So in terms of other ways of saving or finding ways to pay off that credit card, any suggestions on where we can find other sources of money?
So earning more, right?
So, well, okay.
So earning more, I'm not going to be that helpful. But what I suggest is going through all of your expenses and seeing if there are ways to take further costs out of your fixed expenses. And we actually just launched this week a debt guide. And if you come to magnifymoney.com and the top right, you'll see debt free. If you click on that and download the guide, we have an entire section on ways that you can save money. And there, just as Magnify Money is here to help you with your credit card debt, there are some great websites out there for other parts of your life. So everyone should be comparing auto insurance, and that doesn't mean just going to the auto insurance company with the biggest advertising budget. And there's a great websites. There are a few websites in our guide that we share where you can go and compare your auto insurance. Right? Everyone should have some form, or not everyone, depends on your situation. But if there's a need, if people depend on you, you may need insurance. But term life insurance is always cheaper than whole life. And if you're stuck in some whole life policy, right, you may want to go out and find. And so we created a list of what are some of the biggest fixed costs that people have, and how can you just go out and, just like we try to help you at Magnify Money, how can you do comparison shopping in all of the other areas?
That's great. So if somebody had more questions or wanted to get more information, where could they go?
Sure. So just come to magnifymoney.com and you'll find all the information. If you want to email us a question, the bottom right, it says questions, email us. Just click send a note. We'll get back to you within a day.
Love it.